the podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.
Hi, welcome back to the podcast that floats down here. Tonight we are discussing Gerald's Game by Stephen King. This was published in 1992. It is 445 pages long. It is dedicated, which is really interesting to me. The dedication said, "This book is dedicated with love and admiration to 6 good women: Margaret Spruce Morehouse, Catherine Spruce Graves, Stephanie Spruce Leonard, Anne Spruce Labrie, Tabitha Spruce King, and Marcella Spruce." I hear a theme. I'm sensing in-laws.
Yeah.
Right? So our panel tonight is me. I'm Melissa. Hi, I'm still here. I exist. I'm present and accounted for. Also present and accounted for is Ben. Hello, Ben.
Hello. How are you tonight?
I'm good. We are existing. Are you existing or are you beyond that?
I'm more made of moonlight right now, so.
Okay. Luke is here. He's fine.
I'm totally existential, but I certainly exist.
There you go. As long as you don't go to the dog park.
There is no such thing as a dog park. Don't go to the dog.
We don't talk about the dog park or the librarians.
Don't talk about the librarians.
So we are here discussing Gerald's Game, not Welcome to Night Vale, although maybe someday. Gerald's Game, which is almost a controversial book. It's very divisive in the Stephen King world, if you will. The back cover says it's a different kind of bedtime story, Gerald's Game. On a warm weekday in October, in a lovely summer home of Gerald and Jessie Burlingame, a game is about to begin. The talking, not so much tonight, boys. I'm warning you. And I just got water. All right. It's a game to be played between husband and wife, and a game that has Jessie being innocently handcuffed to the bedposts. Then, in one horrible, violent act, Gerald is dead, and Jessie, well, she's alone and still chained to the bed. But Jessie's about to have company that goes beyond her worst nightmares. Insert scary music here. Dun, dun, dun.
I need a scary music button. I don't have it set up anymore.
Okay.
All right, so I just want to shout out, if you are new here, welcome. We appreciate you. We kindly ask that you hit that subscribe and like button so you can not miss out on any more of our wonderful Stephen King 2020 Stephen King book club series. Ironic for this year that we are doing a Stephen King book club. It's worked out. Sorry, guys. And then, if you've been here before, welcome back. We're happy to see you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nice to be here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We are going to go ahead and jump right in. I have no filter today. And I don't have, usually with King books, there's little petty stuff and we can nitpick. I got nothing, right? Girl is handcuffed to a bed with her dead husband being eaten on by a dog. And that's the light part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of just here's the base line of what's going on, right? That's just kind of almost chill in the background, the first half of the book, really. And then it really unfolds a lot more as we learn more about her and her own history and why this is potentially affecting her even worse than it might anybody, I think.
So this is not my notes at all. I'm like I said, I'm off book. I feel like I was reading this, and I will be honest with you, right? I was 25 years ago the last time I read this book because it wasn't my favorite back then. And I had never read Cujo before this year. Mm-hmm. Reading this now was oh my God, it's if Cujo was actually scary. That's how I kept feeling about this because Cujo was intense. But they had food and they had the canister of milk and they could pee into a cup and dump it out the window. Jessie didn't even have hands available to her. So for me, this was almost worse because she was physically restrained as opposed to just in a box. It was like if you took Cujo and said, okay, let's make it worse and add sexism.
I really didn't even make the Cujo connection. It just didn't dawn my. But I see that quite a bit, and I like just anyone who doesn't really bother me much, but deals with claustrophobia. I imagine this is a 10 times worse situation because you could at least with Cujo run out there and have it kill you, like of your own choice, right? Here you're just waiting. You can't do anything about that at all. Like you can't even be like, "Here, puppy, come and chew my brains apart." Like that's not an option. With Cujo, you could have just walked out there and be like, "Take me, Jesus, take the wheel."
If I stick my hand out here, Cujo, and you eat my hand off, I can get out of the handcuff
Right,
and maybe
teamwork.
let's work together. Oh, but it also has the feel of misery, right? Like being stuck in a bed. Only unlike Paul, she doesn't have anybody else to rely on. As crazy as Annie Wilkes may have been, I like she doesn't even have an aunt. Like I don't know. I just see it's like he took all of the most fucked up parts of each of those stories and then throw in the isolation that was in The Shining. Why not throw that in there too? And mix it all up with a little bit of creepy guy.
A little Pennywise maybe.
Yeah, I thought that
thrown in
too.
there.
They kept calling it too. She kept calling it it.
Yeah.
So, like that's one thing that just jogs in your memory with it.
Well, I kept wanting it to be Leland Gaunt. I kept thinking it was Leland Gaunt from Needful Things, right? Because of the long fingers and the tall thing, and we just read that. And then later on in the book, I mean, we get Norris Ridgwick back, right? And and John, his assistant, and I was like, see, it could have been Leland, but it wasn't.
I was thinking Leland or the guy from Salem's Lot, the Barlow.
Oh yeah.
See, I was thinking Henry Matthew Deaver potentially as Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah.
Yes,
as
he
Bill
would be
Skarsgård,
played.
not the other way around. He was acting as Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah, exactly.
Actual Henry Michael Deaver as opposed to the alternate Henry Michael Deaver. Yes.
No, I like your point there, and because when we talked about our last book, Needful Things, it almost felt like King had taken a step in his writing, right? It's different now. It's almost like he's graduated out of, we'll call the first 15 years of his writing, or whatever that timeline is, or somewhere 15 to 20 years at this
25
point.
25 at that point.
But it seems like he's graduated a little bit, and he's almost like using this almost as like an in-between time before he does new things to like take his favorite, or like at least the fans' favorite things from those, and like you said, meld them all together and try to make a coherent story with a lot of those same topics, but it doesn't feel like it's just being reused to me. Like I got some similarities, but it didn't seem like, oh, well, this is just the same again. Like, it was refreshing, but I can see a lot of similarities between those, ones that you just brought up. I think that's a great point.
And I'm not trying to say that I think he's rehashing. It's more like these are universal fears, right? Is this a scary book? Absolutely. Is this a horror book? No.
Is it a scary book? No. Nothing
King would
written
say
that I've read has been scary
he's
at all.
He's not a horror. King himself, because I watched a bunch of his interviews, because I was looking for one quote specifically about this book that I heard months ago, and I can't find it, and it's bugging me. But he's kept saying over and over again, he's like, they ask, so how does it feel to be the top horror writer there is? And he's like, I'm not a horror writer. I'm a suspense writer. There's a difference. And this is an absolute suspense book. Absolutely, because it's like, is she going to get out? Is she going to survive this? Is that guy real? Is the dog real? Is she real? And it's
and what's up with the voices in her head and what's like going on with her past? Because man, that's crazy. And I don't know. You guys are like, oh, it's not scary, and you're right. It's not jump scare horror movie scary. But as a woman, that scares the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, no, I get that.
Like to me, that idea of being literally in a man's control. I don't care who it is, right? Being in a man's control so much to the point that I'm stuck and then he's gone. She didn't want to be there. That was not a comfortable place for her. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a comfortable place. And I think I'm going to try to I'm a failed English major at one point in my life. I feel like her being handcuffed is that symbol for her whole life with men, of being like chained to their actions, right? How many times did she say, like, what is a woman good for? Right? And I don't like that word, so I'm not saying it and I don't want to hear it, but what is a woman good for? Right? Oh, it's just a housing unit for
Life
a
support system.
right, life support system for anyway. I don't think that's how all women feel, but obviously she has been so degraded in her life, probably very subtly in ways that she would not even have recognized if not put in that literal degrading position.
I could not agree more. Honestly, I saw
Absolutely.
your first note. We chatted a little bit before this. I said, well, Melissa's got the ultra theme of the book nailed down. I mean, that's what it is. And I like
Mhm.
the symbolism of literally being chained to things that are happening to her. She has no control, no volition in any of these things, and she never
She also,
did. And so and like
Mhm.
you said, I don't think she ever realized it until she is in such a dire, specifically trapped position that she never had to really come to grips with it. She actively fought that off because she kept getting by, right? She was able to keep moving forward, and that's great. I'm all for that, but at the same time, you can't always just ignore those things that unfortunately have defined her to an extent, and she does to herself that she doesn't realize. And she had a friend in
Yeah.
college that knew it and almost got her to talk about it, and
Mhm.
she shut her out of her life, and that was like one of the last opportunities that she had, which is why that becomes one of her voices.
Right. And so I kind of have two thoughts after that. The first is like, I think Jesse is just such a good representation of mentally abused spouses, and people who've suffered abuse, sexual abuse in their early years, particularly women, because she keeps thinking, oh, but I'm not as bad as I could be. Oh, but there's worse out there. Oh, but I'm okay because I have a nice house and oh, he's not always like that. Like, but he has no power to do anything. Even though she could have all these years, she had absolutely every available option. They're well off. She's married to a lawyer. She absolutely has every available option. But like, that's the culture. That's the culture that I think a lot of people don't understand with that Me Too movement and those kind of feminist issues. Oh, she's a feminist and oh, she's making a big deal out of it. No, because what those men over those years have done to her is so common and so typical. And I'm not saying it's always the dad, but the manipulation of her dad, right? Oh, we've got to tell. Like playing on her feminine, like sympathetic, empathetic nature. He knew
Oh
he
yeah,
knew what he was doing. To me, that was worse. I mean, not that
Oh,
it was good. It's all bad, but that was that was evil
it
right there.
was
But that
slickly sly and evil. It was incredibly effective. I don't want to say well done because that makes it seem like it's a positive thing. It was very effective. It's very Tywin-esque, right? It's very cold cut combo like Tywin Lannister, right? And he's able to, yeah, I mean, have her actively make the decision when she's what 11 or however old she was, and this happens,
10 or 11, yeah.
and
10,
10,
10.
and
10.
he actively steers the conversation in a way that she fears for people to find out for her own reasons, not to protect him at all. It's to
Mhm.
protect her,
Her.
and he
Yeah.
knows where she is mentally with her mom and that relationship. So he knows that he can play that card. And you could easily swing it and view it the other way of, oh, maybe he was being honest, but bullshit.
No.
I could see someone reading it that way and just being like, well, it was an accident, whatever. But no, it wasn't. Like it
But
wasn't.
no means no, man. Like this is not any different than like a boy forcing a girl to have sex with him and her saying I really don't want to and kind of hesitant and then him playing it off like oh you do and she's like no and they do it happens anyway. It's like oh but she wanted it. I didn't know. Yeah, you did. But it's so culturally accepted to back the male, to not believe the female,
Yeah.
nobody would have believed her, right? It would have broken everything. It would have ruined everything. To me, like this was written 30 years ago, and it's still true because this is how women are seen. This is how they are treated. This is so dumb. I had a conversation earlier at work and we were doing something dumb about dress code. And some of the guys in the conversation were like, man, women get away with dress codes way more. They get to wear sandals, they get to wear t shirts. And I was like, fuck it, take the sandals. You can have that. That's the privilege you want. Great. I want yours. Because this hasn't changed. Somebody else talk about something else because I got to get off that high horse. We got to move on.
So, okay, I'm going to kind of steer this in starting on mine because I hit like kind of major points of. I'm kind of the one that talked actual stuff. Luke has a couple points on those too. But mine starts at the very beginning, and to your point, Melissa, to the whole feminist, the whole women mentality, the victimhood, and everything. And I will give credit to like 50 Shades of Grey. We've talked about that book on this show, or mentioned it,
but only not because of the because it was poorly written. Go on.
Yes, agreed. But it did bring the nation the knowledge of the safety word, the importance of the safety word from the get-go, and the lack of communication between Jess and Gerald at the very beginning on both their parts, because Gerald's like, oh, this is part of the game. And he knows she's being honest, but at the same time, they don't have that safety shut-off word.
But they don't have that because he's never given her any respect to think that she deserves one.
Mm-hmm.
No, agreed. And
I'm not agreeing with you. I'm just heated.
Yeah, no, I understand. So no, completely agreed. But that's why I want to give credit to 50 Shades and other books like that brought this kind of sexuality to the forefront and made people aware. Hey, if you're gonna do it right, do smart, be safe, and no means no unless it's part of the game that's been pre-described, and then you have the safety word, which yes, in this realm,
something that's agreed on that means no, then cool.
Yeah, and rightfully so, he got a kick to the dick that any man should have deserved in that position, and he had to suffer the consequences of it. So it's an interesting start. I really did enjoy that first, I'm going to say hour and a half of the audiobook, like that build up and everything, and the first initial knockdown drag out. It's like, okay, cool. Then we get into part two a little bit, and we get into some repetitive stuff over like rehashing of thoughts, like and it's just repetitiveness kept going and going and going and going.
Yeah, let's talk about the repetitiveness. I feel like we kept reliving the eclipse and getting different parts of that day over and over, and it was really annoying at first. I was like, I heard this, I got this, I just want the whole story. This is supposed to be a short Stephen King book, and I feel like I've been reading it for a week and 2 weeks. But once I thought about it, how many times did her voice say, "You've never left the eclipse"? Of course we went through it over and over and over and over again because she's never moved past it. Her brain, that's just what it does. And so I agree with you. It's kind of annoying to read through. But device-wise, to see her mental illness and her need, that was really smart.
So I feel like this very much goes back to harkening back to Cujo a bit, of how I think that was a criticism of that book, and I really appreciated it because when you're in that, again, she is trapped, emotionally, psychologically trapped. I think this is filtering through on that even further, that your mind just is going to do that. Like, it's going to go through and, oh, well, I tried this, it's not going to work. And you just keep rehashing the same things because you're just, how do you manufacture a new thought when you have nothing going on? Like, there's no stimulus other than I'm fucked, right? Like, I'm fucked. Like, I'm gonna die here. Like, it's hard to get out of that and mentally get into a productive mindset to be able to force yourself out of that. And so I think that very much goes into that theme, and like you said earlier, that symbol of feeling trapped and actually being trapped. And so I feel like the rehashing of it, yeah, it can be tiresome to read, but guess what? Put yourself in, well, her cuffs in this scenario instead of her shoes, because she's not wearing shoes. And like, it just feels real to me. I guess it feels like that's what would happen.
And I can understand
It's
that.
supposed to
And
be
it's not even
painful because it's painful for her. I guess is my point.
yes, and I guess my problem isn't the repetitiveness of the story, like the clip stuff or the birthday party or anything like that. It's the repetitiveness of terms just irked the crap out of me. It's the space cowboy. It's the gangster of love. It's the space cowboy. It's the specter of love. And like literally says it like 15 times in the last 20 minutes, and it just that kind of stuff just. And it happened all throughout the book. It really just got to me. It grated me just using the exact same wording. It's not the repetitiveness of this repeating the story back. I appreciated that. It was the repetitiveness of using the same terminology over and over again. As an audio listener, it just
that could be an audiobook specific thing, especially when you're going pretty quick through the audiobook and it's just that earworm almost. It's like shut up already.
Exactly. So that's more where I was coming from with the tediousness and repetitiveness.
I'm gonna say really quick, you kind of talked about like her actual physical pain. This hurts. I've been doing this for like 45 seconds. Okay, so keep in mind, I'm older than she was, and I've also been laying floor in my house for the last like 4 or 5 days, and I have major nerve problems. So as I was reading through this book, particularly the end, and she's like, my hand is cramping, and it's going to be cramping all the way down my body, and I was like, oh my God, like I could feel it. I could feel it tensing through here, and my arm would get all like hurt. I was like, I have to stop reading so that because my body was reacting to his words, which is kind of a sign that he's like nailed it, right? That I'm having the physical, almost like the phantom pregnancy pains, right? Yeah. I'm having the physical phantom pains of her because it's so perfectly described. This is what I mean by so scary, because I can feel it and I can live it, and that's horrid.
Fair, totally fair.
Yeah.
So another thing that she goes through is like this fear of her own loss of sanity. And Benji, you kind of touched on this of like, is the dog even real? Is this even happening? Like just the loss of self and like actively going through insanity almost and fear of falling down into that hole and knowing that she's losing consciousness and coming back because she's dehydrated and dying, right? And she doesn't die, spoiler, but she survives. But this whole time she believes, I am never leaving this room, because she's exhausting all of these options and it's just not working. Your hands are literally unusable. And so like just this, it's almost something that, like, if you ever read Catch-22, it's done jokingly there a bit, but it's just that loss of sense of self. It's almost actively done there so we can get out of the military. But it's a real thing, and I think this is done really, really well on talking about that and just the delusional aspect and knowing that you're delusional, but not being able to do anything about it, and then just, the loss of touch and sense and everything. I think that was described incredibly well through her whole ordeal, or her whole troubled time is what she called it, right?
Yeah. So I do want to give a shout out to King, even though I can't find the clip of it. He talks about this book, writing this book. His son Joe was around, I want to say like 18 or 20 years old, just getting into writing. And he's had this idea of having a woman handcuffed to a bed. But he's trying to figure out how to get her out of it and what can she do. So he says, so he actually has Joe test it by grabbing the headboard and seeing if he can flip up, as it's mentioned in the book. So I'm thinking, reading the whole damn thing, that's how she gets out, because I've heard that story before. And unfortunately, or not unfortunately, I like kind of like the way it went in general, but knowing that he had his son attempt that just to get out of it, it's like, okay, props to you, King, for,
allow it.
Putting in the time, putting in the research.
Well, I was going to say, children as guinea pigs, I'll allow it. Totally fine. As long as it's your own.
I believe in child labor. I don't believe in child labor laws.
My last kind of thought doesn't even not even the same, not even the same like genre of word. My last thought is, okay, so she got out of the cuffs, right? I was all excited. I knew the story, right? I was like, oh yeah, I know about the dead husband. I know about the dog. I know about I know there's the eclipse and something happened with her dad. Like for the first time in a while, I remembered big details. I was like, oh, she got out of the cuffs. But I have 200 pages left. How did what else is there? She got out of the cuffs. I don't understand. How come there's more? Is what I kept thinking. I was like, oh, okay, I'll keep going. What else could there be? I like that it didn't stop there. I didn't think I would because I really just wanted to get to the end of the book, but I was very pleased that we got the resolution that we got. But it took
Yes.
me some time to appreciate how much more effort I had put in.
Yeah, no, I actually completely agree. I was shocked when I looked down. I had like 2.5 hours left, so yeah, about 200 pages. To hear it out, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And then we're still in the cabin for half an hour or 45 minutes after she slips the one cuff, and then still probably 20 minutes after she gets out of the second one. And it's like, okay, you're out. Go to the car. Go to the phone, and this I think plays into the double side of it, of the how well written it is, and it's almost a word vomit of he wants to get every idea he has out onto the page because she deserves it. Jess is a great character that deserves every word that comes in her head to be put on the page. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we get it. We don't need a page and a half of how her hand hurts while she's trying to get the handcuff key. I mean, like every minute detail. And so I can see where there's that divide of, enjoyment to just meh on this book.
To the end of the book, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, because we've been sitting through her whole painful ordeal for, I mean, audiobook wise,
At
8,
that point,
9
11
hours.
hours.
I mean,
It's a 13-hour audiobook.
Yeah,
So by the time she gets it off, you've got 3 left, and you're like,
yeah, it's about 9 or 10 hours in, and
Yeah.
I got the same feeling that you did of what else are we doing? And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be one of those. We see the aftermath of what happens, and I like when we get those. Sometimes it's nice to just cut it off, big scene, escape, off to the
carry the
sunset.
dead wife up to this pet cemetery. It's fine.
Fine.
Misery, there was something in my, room and done. You get a half
Yeah.
chapter. End of Misery, you get about a half chapter to a chapter.
But this was an extended aftermath,
Oh, yeah.
right? With some of
Yeah.
her recovery, we met some really interesting people there too. Yeah, we'll get to that as well. I just want to talk one more thing about the eclipse, and so she's going through this whole thing in the room in the cabin, right? And or summer home, whatever. I put a cabin on the picture, so I'm misleading if it wasn't really a cabin. But she's reliving this experience she had with her dad when she was 10, and they went to go see the eclipse together. There was a whole thing of almost him orchestrating this to have her go with him because it would be special for her, and she doesn't get along with her mom very well or her sisters because the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and the mom is frustrated with Jessie as a young girl. That's just what's going on. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but he ends up kind of orchestrating this to have the two of them, Jessie and the dad, go see this eclipse together. He asks her to wear this little dress that is too small on her, and ends up watching the eclipse and having a spill in his lap while she's sitting on his lap, is what I'll say. Yeah, I think that's a safe way of discussing that. He realizes something happened and kind of shoos her away, and she's in her head figuring out what happened, right? So she's a little girl here, and there's been rumors and whispers about what boys and girls do with her school friends and all this, right? But she doesn't know anything in this realm of humanity, I should say, and she's looking at her dad, and he's treating her a little bit differently. One, he probably feels a little upset with himself because he actually let it happen. I think you could make that adjustment, or he's upset that he might get caught. I don't know. You could probably spin it either way. And it's gross, right? It is gross. and she sees him looking at her with disappointment in his eyes for like the first time in her life, and she starts internalizing all of these things that she did wrong, right? And she's justifying that what he did was, oh, he just goosed me, like little kids do. Oh, just hit someone in the butt, right? Like whatever. Like it's stupid, but little kids do that. That's the only thing that she can put in her mind of what happened. And so she calls it that. He just goosed me. It's no big deal. And then we talked about her being manipulated into essentially not telling anybody of her own volition, her own choice to not tell anybody to protect herself and not necessarily him. But later on in her life, her brother went up and publicly embarrassed her in front of all of these kids at a big party by goosing her. And
goose, not a
right, yeah, just by actually doing little kid stuff and embarrassing her, pulling a prank on her, and she went and beat the crap out of him. And like, I just want to know, because there was a connection between a song being played during the eclipse when that all happened with her dad, and this is maybe just her own mental warping of what happened the day with her brother, that she was hearing that song, or she thought the brother put that song on to then go do this. And do you have any thoughts on, like, if the brother knew anything, or if she's just mentally making a jump, or if there's actually just a coincidental that Marvin Gaye's song was on? I was a little confused.
So I think it's coincidental that the Marvin Gaye song was on. I don't think that was intentional, because she even said, like, it was a good day and we just had records playing. But I do think there is a heavy correlation between trauma and like triggers for trauma. So for her, part of her trigger is probably that song.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's being it's the smell of the lake, the smell of the well from whatever that was, and the song from Marvin Gaye, which she has always disliked, right?
Yeah.
Well, now she disliked.
Yeah.
So she's got this song on, which meant she's already subconsciously riled up. She probably doesn't even notice, right? But her anxiety level is already up because that song is a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Then he does this. My guess would be, if that song wasn't playing, he might have turned and like yelled, but her anxiety would not have already been triggering her to the flashback.
Oh, sure, yeah.
A combination of, I've got this song, this is reminding me, and now he's touching me, and he's touching, like, I think it was the whole package that just timed really badly for Will.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, this is my headcanon because I can't recall exactly, but I think her dad is the one that put on that record during the birthday party, because they were playing individual 45s and stuff, and I think it said dad put on the I could be incorrect about that, but at the same point, it's because it could be a trigger on the reverse spectrum for him too, because it can work both ways, as the anxiety to nastiness side of it.
Here's the thing, I don't give a shit about what he wants. I don't.
No,
I
under.
Screw him.
So there was, I guess the reason I was confused a little is because earlier on in the book, and I didn't go back and reread this part, but she makes a comment, well, she's thinking, because that's what we spend almost all this book doing, is hearing her think. She doesn't have that many lines, to be honest, for how long she's on screen. But
Jason Bourne.
But early on, she's talking about her brother and how his friends gave her trouble at one point because she would put up for her brother and not them. And again, is that like her projecting on their thoughts about her? Because I don't know if we ever got anything about that. But do you remember that scene?
I remember hearing that as well.
But yeah, no.
And it was well before we get the birthday party thing. That's where I was like, is there something more going on? Like
was it from that same birthday party, or was that like
I think
later?
It was later on when they were like in high school, like much later on.
Like she was like 14 or 15, he was like 12 or 13, and
yeah, I don't remember.
I remember that sticking out, but then it never came up again. And
First
Yeah.
3 hours or so of the book.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that I wonder, like, if as he's writing, it's just a string he never picked back up. You know, like
Could be.
you write in a lot of starting strings and then you pull at some and tug at others, and that one just didn't get picked up and go anywhere, and so it ended up not being much.
And
I don't really know.
Again, like, because of the goosing, that then she has a full different context than what really happened. Like, it could almost be like her projecting on a different, completely unrelated incident that her brother's friends were giving her trouble about something, and she just made an assumption about them, generalized them as having some connection to that. Like, that's like the closest I can make to just her mentally not really grasping what had happened and projecting that on things as she grew up, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe. All right, Ben, Jesse, you've got a couple more thoughts here.
Yeah, they're pretty quick. Well, the first one is, so it's a dual one. First, I want to talk about Ruth, the voice Ruth and Lady Ruth. For the longest time, I thought this was Kate from It. I thought this was Beverly Marsh's friend, Kate. I talked to Luke about this differential, but when you first get described her, she is to a T, kind of that man-hating, feminist, you can do it, girl, kind of thing mentality. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything. This is just the way it was described. And so I couldn't remember the name of Kate for a long time until
Kate
Luke
McCall.
looked it up. But I like the parallel between the two. I'd like to think those two are sisters, maybe, or like cousins, and like come from the same gene pool. But my big thought there is actually Prince. Prince is a good boy. He's just trying to survive. He's a collie lab mix. So collies in general are good dogs. Labs are good dogs. He's just doing what he needs to do to survive. And you got this fat fuck laying on the ground here. He ain't doing nothing. He's got some blood leaking out. Yeah, I'm going to munch. So I can't blame the guy. Can't blame the dog at all. But it was well written of, the coming in. And I love getting the Prince backstory, too, because it made me feel it's the same thing. Like Cujo. Cujo was a good boy, just a bad circumstance. Prince didn't do anything wrong. He didn't hurt anyone. He just was hungry.
Do you think Stephen King could write a bad dog? Like an actual bad dog that doesn't then have circumstance happen to him? I want to see him write about a bad dog. Like, it's just a dog who's bad.
That's one bad dog.
The dog, like, nope, that's Trigger. He's an ass. I don't know what to tell you.
So one thing I really loved about Prince's story is how he affected Jessie as she was laying there seeing this. Like, how horrendous would that be to see your husband, even if you literally were probably the reason he just died and he was literally about to marital rape you. Like,
and he deserved.
I get that. But like initially she's like just pulling her standard good wife Burley game, right? And she's like, no, this is horrendous. Like, don't do that. And then as she's there longer and becomes a little bit more self-preservation, I think, she also gets in the mindset of Prince enough to understand he's not doing anything wrong. Like, she almost like gets it. She's like, you know what, and fuck that guy. Like, she just the way, like, it's almost like a thing that really starts bringing her back to what I'm going to call her true reality, basically that she's been in stasis from the eclipse from. It's almost like that's one of the things that pulls her back, is the dog coming in and just mauling and chewing up this husband. That was a big reminder of her being trapped and coming back only when he needed to. It wasn't like he was ravaging it for anything other than, just meat. So I like the way it affected her over time, and I think really played a big part into her actually almost mentally recovering through this whole thing, which is really odd that she gets to be tortured to be able to potentially gain back of some of her own individuality, I think.
Which I think then eventually ends up leading to almost like loss of security, because with Gerald previously she felt very secure, right? I have my safe home, and now like she lives with the housekeeper and she can't, like, just wants to be alone, and she's very jumpy and she can't sleep, and I still think that's better.
Yeah.
Like,
great.
She's better off.
It's better to have loved and lost this piece of shit and then basically just survive.
Earned a lot of fucking hurt.
Yeah, when she pushes the bed over the dresser and she accidentally steps on him and he belches up the flies and stuff, and she's like, cover your mouth, Gerald.
Right,
just like
whatever.
yeah, whatever.
She's even she even actively says, like, he's like nothing to me anymore. He's
Yeah,
literally
I
could just
feel
be a
the same.
log there almost. I forget exactly what she's, but there's like a true separation of that
I feel no
means
love. I feel no hate.
nothing to me.
I feel nothing.
You are nothing to me.
So, and then Prince kind of leads into my last thought on this, and Raymond Andrew Javert. So the reason Prince leads into him, because when the Spectre of Love comes back the second night, Prince stops barking. He's not, he was barking, barking, barking. She passed out from the pain from hitting her wrist right after she got the key and everything, and the dog wasn't barking. The dog was silent, and that's how she's like, he's here, he's here. And not gonna lie, most of the book, I'm thinking, okay, this is King's way. He's not gonna have a supernatural thing. This is gonna be a mental break. This is her mental break of there's not anything actually there. And then we get the last chapter of Raymond Andrew Javert, the aftermath, or what was the kicker? That's what it was. The aftermath was just the stuff onto her hand and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kicker chapter, and it just learning about him and everything. It's very interesting, and it's like, why didn't he kill her? Because like I remember reading it the first time through, and I'm like, did he actually even kill anybody, or was he just a grave robber? This and that. Because I'd missed a couple of parts where they had said he killed several people and this and that and everything. And so I'm like, why didn't he kill her? And you never get that answer. But that is the greatest, I'm not gonna lie, probably my favorite Stephen King villain ending. And he only has, you're not real, you're not real, you're made of moonlight. Oh my god, the audiobook on that's so good. And I did just watch the Netflix adaptation of it that came out in 2017. I watched that last night because we were supposed to record and we didn't. So I was like, I'm gonna watch this. The guy who does it, so good, so creepy looking, and just spot on. So, your thoughts on Raymond there?
Can we call him Maurice?
we call him-
Some people call me Maurice. But I thought he was an incredible character to just come out of nowhere, and it just fits so cool. Like, that's really what made it almost like a staple Stephen King thing to me of, yeah, like all of this was enough. Like, it was enough, right? And then like you said, the kicker, like Benji was like, and then you have like the one extra thing that just shines a whole different light on it, because how long was he in there? How long was he there? Was he the reason the dog was able to get in the house, in and out, in and out, in and out? Because the door should have been locked and closed, at least.
Lumberjack at the beginning with the chainsaw?
It could have been him. I mean, he could have been there the entire time, like, and almost peeping Tom and seeing dead body. Let's mess around. I thought he was an incredible character, and we got so little from him. And
I thought it was Gaunt with the bag. Remember, like the actual Leland Gaunt, not fake. Like, I'm gonna be nice businessman, but the back alley, like little troll guy with his bag and right, the little peddler guy. Here's this creepy man with a bag with a jaw clasp, an actual, like, she even said, she's like, the clasp looks like there's
was it made
a
of
jaw,
hay
like,
or something? It was a
what?
weird material that it was made of too. I forget
Or
what it
off
was.
the top of my head.
It was
But
a
it was like,
wicker basket, I thought, or something.
Yeah, it was made of wicker. That's why I was like straw. Sorry.
I mean, that's so detailed and different, right? Well, not a medicine bag, but like a wicker basket with a jaw handle, and like, and I could see this tying into the larger world of Stephen King, his big bad guy that kind of sprinkles, which we haven't really run into really yet. At least not that I know if Leland Gunn's like the best sort of version we've seen in all of our book reads. But it ended up being like a real person, and I was like, oh, I mean, like, creepy. I was like, I was almost disappointed, because I was like, I kind of wanted you to be like a monster, like an actual bad. Yeah, like, I mean, we've had vampires and we've had telekinesis and we've had like dead cat things. Like, I kind of wanted like an actual monster, right? But I liked this too. I was like ready for the creepy bad guy. And this, gentleman, is where I get to my point of, I was scared, right? So she's handcuffed to the bed and she's trapped there, and that's like, women's worst nightmare kind of thing. And she gets out, and then she hits her head and passes out. right? And she's just like out. And she wakes up and it's dark. Her first returning thought was that the darkness meant she was dead. Her second was if she was dead, her right hand wouldn't feel like it had been first been napalmed and then flayed with razor blades. Aw, flayed.
Shout out to Ramsey.
Bolton.
Huh? Her third was the dismal realization that if it was dark and her eyes were open, as they seemed to be, that the sun had gone down. That jolted her up from the in-between place where she had been lying, not quite unconscious, but deep in a post-shock lassitude in a hurry. At first she couldn't remember why the idea of sundown had been so frightening, and then space cowboy, mountain monster of love, it all came back to her in a rush so strong it was like electric shock. The narrow, corpse white cheeks, the high forehead, the rapt eyes. And at this point I'm reading and you hear a howl. And I'm reading and like the dog knew. And I was like, it was 1:00 in the morning and there were thunderstorms outside and everybody was sleeping. And I noped right out of the rest of this book. And I said, I'm going to read this in daylight. That was Saturday night. I said, nope, that's good. Took me like 45 minutes to fall asleep. See, that's when I know like it's got me, right? I can't not keep going, but I can't keep going because it's scary. And like monster under my bed scary because it could be my house and everybody's sleeping and I was scared.
No, and I think you messaged our team Slack that you were like, you know what, just got to a part that legitimately scared me. I think I'm done for the night. That's about it. I'm gonna go ahead and
There's 100 pages left. I'm good.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Let's see if I can find it really quick.
And so, like, we can keep talking about. I really liked the part where she finally is escaping, right? And she like gets out of both handcuffs, and she runs into this guy standing in like the kitchen or something, like somewhere else in the house, as she's like going to the car.
Study.
In the study. And he like doesn't really do anything, does he? She's just like going through like a mental aneurysm of, oh my God, it was all real. This whole thing that Melissa was just going through, this all happened. Like, oh my God, like, oh, I have to even quicker get out of here because who is this UFO? She kept calling him an alien because of his acromegaly. He's quite deformed, and when she's in her own state, yeah, I mean, I think that's an apt, unfortunate description for this man. And I just saw a picture of the Netflix version of what he looks like. It's pretty close to what I had viewed as well in my mental head. But like that point where he's just standing, he doesn't do anything. He just stands there and lets her freak the hell out. Like he just lets her freak out.
And I believe, doesn't she throw her wedding ring at him? She
Her
throws
we-
that
her
thinking
the band and the
band.
engagement.
Yeah, because she saw that he collected jewelry and such, so
So
she's
he
like,
just like she
here.
throws it and then
because
books it.
because she had seen the pearl earring.
yes. Yeah.
So I found my message really quick. It said, I was reading during the thunderstorm. I have 100 pages to go. Got too scared to continue at midnight. We'll read again tomorrow during daylight hours.
Great character though. Seriously.
Yeah.
Awesome character out of nowhere. It's just like totally not even needed, but that it was just awesome when it was there.
All right. Questions?
Questions.
Here we go. I feel like I need like question music.
Next time. I could play something.
2021.
I could play something.
2021. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. For a large part of this book, Jessie is trapped on her bed. Would you consider this her only entrapment?
I think we talked about that pretty well.
Yeah.
Which version of being trapped was the worst for her?
The father's basically making her promise on her own volition to not tell and not disclose, not to anybody. And so she was trapped in the eclipse day from 10 to 39, so that's, yeah. It shut her off from.
I think I agree with that. That initial one kind of sets the tone for yeah. I mean, the next 29 years of her life, and almost going from trap to trap. And I feel like that's probably the worst one because it fundamentally changes who she is.
Yeah, and up to this point, like the other entrapment I think it would be the entrapment with Gerald, but at the same time, had she not had that first one, she probably wouldn't have ended up with Gerald. And secondly, it's an entrapment by choice, as we had said, because of the security, because of the comfort that
It's a real
was
Bev
provided.
Rogan situation, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it really is. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think the first one's probably the worst. This one's the most gory, that's for sure. But I think that one sets the tone for the others.
Yeah.
Do we get it right?
Okay.
Do we get it right?
Yes. A+. I don't give grades, so sure. You know what? Everything's made up and the points don't matter.
That's true.
Okay.
Whose line was that?
Depends on the show. Well, it depends on which version. All right, here we go. Question 2. Imagine it. Sicily, 1922. No, okay, not Sophia. How would the book be different if everything happened exactly the same? Everything happened exactly the same, right? Jessie saw the guy. Jessie skinned her own hand. Jessie knocked herself out. She got out. But there was no Raymond Andrew Javert. How would it be different for you?
I don't think it changes much. I think I kind of mentioned that a minute ago. Like it was enough. It was good. It told a great story. She had enough going on with the whole entrapment thing, the whole mentally the loss of sanity thing, and the recapturing her sanity almost through this torture. I think we discussed that. I don't think it would have hurt the story not having Raymond in it. I think it exponentially helped it, but it would not have hurt for it not to be there, if that makes sense. Like it was still a pretty solid story without it. To me, it took it to a different level, though.
So now your question, the Spectre of Love and all that's still there, just Raymond's not.
All of it.
Okay. It would have fundamentally, it probably would have fundamentally changed my feeling on the book. Because as I've said, it was very tedious, and I enjoyed the journey, but it was just the getting to the journey. It just irked me. But that was the topper. Like that made it all worth it. Finding out that last bit of everything. So, like for me, that didn't make the book, but it made it a lot more enjoyable. Was that last bit? You know,
what do you think, Melissa?
There's only 2 of you.
Oh.
Yeah. Hi, little man.
Okay, go to bed.
So, yeah. So, like I said, it's one that, you know, had it not been there and had it not been explained at all, I really would have been pissed. Apart from just, that was just a mental break and that's all it was, that would have really pissed me off of just like, okay, that's just a cop-out. That's just laziness almost. Give me something. Like you said, give me the big bad for the other stories, tie them into this or something. But without that, it would have felt like there's just been this whole other aspect built into it that just, I don't know, wouldn't have fit right. It wouldn't have felt right.
For me, like, that was pretty late in the book that any of that really happened, like, at all. So, like, to me, that easily could have been put off as, okay, she did mentally break a little bit. Like, and I would have been okay with that. I guess that's where I'm at with it. Like, there's a lot going on. Like, if she's slightly, I mean, she's incredibly dehydrated, which is enough to cause any of this. I mean, don't drink anything for a day and a half. You'll start seeing things. And eat at all. But I feel like that's how I could have been okay with it. It's almost because of what she's gone through. It's so late, it doesn't discount anything else that happened that was real. But this is like a final snap that she's able to recover from, I guess.
Yeah.
So here's my take on it. Okay, you ready for this? If he wasn't real, this book proves the theory a lot of men have about women. Brandon, why? So her friend Brandon, right, the lawyer from Gerald's firm who's kind of been tasked with fixing up the Burlingame mess, if you will. she's telling him about the guy and she's freaking out about the guy and I have to know, and he's like, okay, but like, it could be, and she's like, but I saw the guy and there's the guy, and right, she loses it. He was smiling, but it was less a winning smile this time, I'm afraid. It was the kind of smile men always seem to get on their faces when they're thinking about how silly women are and how it should really be against the law to let them out without their keepers. You came to that conclusion that the line was cut after checking one phone, the one in the bedroom, and finding it dead, right? Like, there's no trust in her perspective. It's, I have to prove you wrong. You can't just be right. And I see that time and time again in social media and in movies and in books and in how men treat women a lot of the time because of how it's portrayed. It's, I can't trust you. I have to find facts that either back up what you're saying or disprove you. I can't just trust you at face value because, oh, you're just like it says here, a silly woman. If Raymond wasn't real, she would never have had her proof that she's not crazy. And this really happened. And I'm telling you, this is what it is. She needed Raymond to be real so that Brandon, and like almost like Stephen King's kind of fuck you to the men who do this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, stop second guessing. Trust it to face value because they're a grown ass woman, god damn it. And they don't need you to prove or disprove. Take them at face value, because if that had been a man, take everything else, and that had been a man, nobody would have questioned the fuck out of him.
So I wanted to defend myself real quick because I totally forgot about Brandon's. We didn't talk about him at all.
No.
And like, this is the way I was viewing it.
Brandon. That's the problem.
Yeah, and she did too. She's like, even with that.
I know.
Like, but so I had totally forgotten about that perspective. I literally was thinking it when she was talking about that in that way, because that part really stuck out to me. Obviously, I forgot about it in this discussion because we didn't really even get to the end of it other than talking about Raymond. But yeah, no, like I was almost viewing it as the cutting off at when she's escapes and what that matters to her personally at that level. So, but I completely 1,000% agree with you. The way it's specifically written in there of, even though Brandon's a good guy, like he's a nice guy, he's going way out of his way to help her, like just legitimately help her, and he still has this bias. I apologize for my I was wrong. No, it does matter. I just viewed it differently.
Because it's a different story.
Right.
If it ends there, the story is about her survival.
Mm-hmm.
This story is not about survival. This story was written to prove that Stephen King could write women.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That shows it.
And I'm going to, fine, we talked about it. I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm not trying to argue. I completely understand and agree with exactly what you said, Melissa. I completely understand it. Brandon, however, is a lawyer, so he's automatically has to think of a logical break down the lines, and it's not because she's just a woman. It's okay, how can this be turned to fuck her over?
Just a woman.
No, it's not. No, any guy, if you get a story like that, like, okay, reverse the roles. Guy's locked in the bed. All of a sudden, there's a random chick in the room, and your wife's now dead. There could be shenanigans. That's a fair assessment of the situation.
I am not discounting that part of it. It's the part where he is saying, "Oh, you knew the phone line was cut. Did you?" It's all of the. I'm not gonna trust your. Like, I'm not gonna trust your.
You're doing great, Gertie. You're doing great.
Yeah, like. Yeah, right. It's that.
It kind of is in that jokingly. That's jokingly.
I have no problem with the. Let's make sure that nobody can spin this that you did this on purpose. I'm fine with that part. It's the perspective of, I'm not gonna trust you because, oh, your little silly girly mind was probably too upset to really understand what was going on.
And I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
Exactly what the hell happened. And
yes.
And the fact that Stephen King had to put Raymond in there so that the world could see that she's not some crazy, stupid woman because women aren't. I don't know. I'm a big fan. I may have convinced myself, even though it's kind of a slog to get through.
Convince yourself of
All
what?
right.
So yeah,
That I really liked
like
this book. That it was like, that it made some really strong points 30 years ago. Okay, here we go. Question 4. Ready? During the eclipse, not the dad stuff, but during the eclipse, Jesse sees another woman. And there's something about a man and a well and a thing. We never get any more details about that. What's going on?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. I kind of can, but this is
No.
this is non-book. This is movie explanation.
Oh,
So,
well, what do you think is going on? Stop pretending like you know stuff. What would you
Oh,
think if you knew nothing else? What do you think?
I'm not like because I didn't even think about the well thing. Honestly, all I thought of was she says the smell from the well. That's the only. No, I don't remember the well thing from the eclipse part. Just being honest, I just remember the aftermath of the smell of the well kind of thing. But again, just saw the movie and they kind of made a point of it. I'm not going to go into it because that's a different avenue, and I'm not going to make it sound like it's my own. I'm just
So no
That's
ideas of what it could be about?
no clue.
Because that's another one of those strings that never gets pulled, right?
I don't really remember it, if I'm being honest. Does it connect to other stories or something? Probably is my guess. I really don't know. I have no idea.
All right, here we go. Let's hop to my favorite thing. Benj, you have one in here. The rest of us don't. What's your favorite thing?
Mine, I've said it the last chapter. Raymond and Jabert, learning about him, learning the backstory, learning what she did to confront her demon. Needless to say, the steps she had to go through to face that, and as you said, prove everybody else wrong that you know what, this is actually fucking true. And then the final scene of just Raymond, just you're not real, you're made of moonlight. Still, it was creepy and scary and yeah, a good end to the book. So I'll stick with that as my favorite thing.
All right, Luke.
It's tough. It's odd how tough these are sometimes, right? Like for an entire book, like you should be able to pick like, oh, you're here, but we cover so much ground, even in literally not leaving the room or the bed or the handcuffs for 10 hours. Like there's so many things to like, I think, and I won't pick Raymond, but it was a game changer. I was not expecting it. It was very cool to see how that unfolded in her story. I'm a big fan of that. I really love the fear of loss of sanity that she goes through and the not knowing what's real and actively being aware that the things that she's seeing might not be real. And I guess that ties into Raymond as well. As she develops further into the story and how finally she gets the accolades of recognizing him and he, calls back to her and confirms it. Like I think it's just that whole theme, I think, that loss of sense of self and loss of person, but also the toughness that she shows to actually, like, all of that happened. All of it. Everything that she saw in the cabin happened, and she was affirmed on that. Big fan of that. I like that.
All right, my favorite thing. So, just gonna say, like, in my heart of hearts, I'm like an action flick chick. We spend a lot of time with inaction, and I get it, rightly so. But the moment she gets out of the first cuff by getting her own hand, like she gets out, and then like shit goes down. She's like, "Fuck it, let's go. I got it. I'm in. We're gonna get this done. I'm gonna bleed to death, but not before I get out of here, because I'm getting out of here." And it was that moment of she could have done that all along. She could have done that all along. Everything she needed to do that has been there the whole time, except for that moment, that breaking point of like, there is no escape. I am at that point of desperation. It's do or die, because I don't think she could have done it the day before. I don't think she could have done it even that morning. You have to get to that point of no return
I
and be
think
willing to sacrifice everything because up until the point where you're ready to sacrifice everything, it's too much of a risk to try.
there's a certain level that you can get to where you're basically, yeah, the risk and the cost, right? 127 hours.
I was just thinking that.
There's a
Yes.
certain spot you get to. You know what? I'd rather live without this arm. I'll do whatever I can to cut it off, or to cut her hand off, is what she ended up trying to do by slitting her wrist to use blood as lubrication. There's certain things you have to give, and she tried many creative things. She did. She really did. But it wasn't until she was at almost the final steps that she could do the thing that it really took to do it. And your mind doesn't let you do those things too early. It just puts it in the back. It just doesn't think about it because there are other viable options that are less disastrous, right? Because I don't know what I can get into and what I can survive until you have to survive it.
All right.
This is the
I
worst
don't want
part
to
of
do
the
this.
show. This is the worst part of this show.
The
In that
worst.
it might be the best. It's just the hardest part.
I'm just gonna write like,
It doesn't
if I
matter.
put a -2, how does that affect? I'm just kidding.
So
So this is the part, those of you who are staring at our workbook like we are. This is where we pick a number. This will be our 9th book that we've read. Where does it rank? Currently, Pet Cemetery is very badly ranked as number 1. Misery was number 2. Needful Things was
should
3.
be number 1.
Needful Things?
Misery should be number 1.
Maybe Misery. I don't. Anyway, Pet Cemetery should not be 1. I can argue either of those other two. Needful Things is 3. It is 4. The Shining is 5. I think The Shining should be a little higher. Cujo is 6. Perfect spot for that. Salem's Lot is 7. That should probably be higher. That should be where Pet Cemetery is.
Carrie is exactly where it should be.
What? And Carrie is very aptly placed at number 8.
Not that it's bad. Just
Comparatively, it fits there. So now what we're going to do is we each pick a number. Where does it belong? Which books is it better than? Which books is it worse than? And
1 through 9, correct?
1 through 9.
1 through 9. Where does it go?
It's so
Nobody
tough because I know
entered.
we disagree on so many of the rankings as they are. So it's almost like, do you put it higher or lower depending on how you feel? You have to hedge your
What's
bets.
the other one?
Do I want to
What's the other
manipulate
one?
the system?
Who
Okay,
knows? Maybe next year. I am not ready yet.
I am not ready either.
I don't think I'm emotionally going to be ready for this one. This
Hard.
is so
I know.
difficult.
I can't because there are inherent problems with trying to get through it. But there's it's so good with the stuff that's there.
My
Can I
vote's
do a
in.
decimal?
My vote's in.
Mine's not.
Integers
I'm
only,
not.
please. Integers only, please. Positive integers only, please.
Don't screw with the
Okay.
Prime numbers only. Prime numbers only.
Oh, well, then there goes 2. There goes 4 and 6 and 8 and 9.
All right, Melissa. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6,
No, I can't.
5, 4, 3, forever. 2,
Ready?
1. Enter.
Wow. Okay,
Damn it!
so
I knew it. Damn it! Hang on, I'm just looking at something. I'm not changing it. Mine's locked in. I just want to see. Damn it! All right.
yeah, I'm with you, Benj.
Damn
Okay,
it.
so here's what happened. I picked 6, which meant I decided it really was better than Cujo, not as good as Shining. That's kind of where I think it belongs. Benji put 7, meaning that it was not as good as Cujo, but better than Salem's Lot. Luke said 1. Manipulative little fucker that he is. Which means that the average out to 4, it beats out it. it. But you know what, Benji? Welcome to my world with Pet Cemetery. So I feel your pain.
Fair.
It's a flawed system. Who put this system together?
I'm gonna say it was the structural engineer and not the math teacher, but that's just me.
Hey, we had to do something.
Yeah, I know. You need a system.
Very
It's fine.
imperfect. Very
That's
imperfect.
right. We have decided that at the end of the year, when we finish the last book, we're going to make our own personal rankings.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Totally. I think
Yeah.
we could go back and do it. I think I would vote differently if it was all personal rankings.
Well, plus,
Yeah.
like, we still have 5 books to go, 4 books to go.
Yeah.
Oh, we only have 4 books left, guys, for this year.
For this year. Which, let's get this year over with. This has not been a great one.
So yeah, sorry I had to jump away because I got a little loud there. I was going to rate this 8 just to try to skew the numbers because I think it is, better than or worse than Cujo.
See, that's
I think it's better than Cujo, but like just better.
I think it's better than
Right
Pet
away.
Cemetery. It's not as good as Needful Things for me.
Welcome to how I've been
No,
voting all
I
along.
know.
I gave up.
I know.
Pet Cemetery does not belong in number 1.
That's what I was working on.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
I thought
Like-
Melissa, I thought you were gonna vote a lot higher than you did. I really did.
I did
not
too.
that big. Here's the thing. I don't think I'm ever going to read this book again. It's not my favorite story. I loved what it does in the story.
And that's
But
again,
the
like,
idea
how
of
do you
Picking this
rank
up again.
things?
What?
How, like, it's like, yeah, how do you rank
Right.
it? Right? It's
Like,
always tough.
If I
It's
look at
subjective.
this, I'll read Misery again. I'll read Needful Things again. I will absolutely read it over and over and over again. I'll read The Shining again. Rest of them, maybe Salem's Lot. I kind of liked that one, but to me, a good book is something that I'm compelled to pick up over and over again. And one,
Hey,
maybe
pro
in
tip-
another 20 years.
Pro tip for anyone listening right now or this week, you can actually listen to all of our It podcast chapters as they're releasing daily here on Drawbridge Media. So check that out because it's fun. We're like
All right,
in
all
chapter
right.
4 or 5 or something.
Final thoughts. Luke?
It's a good book. It's a good book. Again, I don't think I'll be reading it again. There aren't many of these that I would be avidly rereading, I should say. I appreciate these books as interesting novels, as almost short stories, because I'm a series guy, just in general. I'm a big series guy. So all of these feel like short stories to me, but none of them are. So it's almost like sometimes they carry out a little bit too long, but I thought this book did an incredible job getting into the trapped woman perspective that we very much talked about. I think that is prevalent. It's a real thing. I think it did a great job with that. I love the symbolism of being trapped and just literally, emotionally, mentally being trapped, and how that plays out with Jesse's character the whole time, and how it essentially drives her crazy, but not really, because it almost helps her find her sanity in giving into it to an extent and escaping from the torment that she's lived with for 29 years. So I thought it was awesome at doing that job.
Benj?
So my final thought note is interesting story, but very tedious and repetitive. We've said that over and over again. I do like the story of it. I'm not gonna lie, this one probably will find its way in the rotation of sleep stories, just to have something to listen to while I'm going to sleep, or if I'm bored at work, for a day or two, throw it on, just have background noise or anything like that. Am I enthralled with? See, I'm actually the exact opposite of Melissa, where she said she didn't care for the story, but what you got in the meat of it, she liked. I liked the story. I liked the trappedness, the having to get out, the Raymond, everything like that. I like the actual story of it. So this one's not a put down forever. I'll probably come back to this one a few times because I did enjoy the story itself, but it just wasn't my favorite. It wasn't fantastic. The movie does a fantastic job with this adaptation, and this was an unadaptable movie or novel is what this book was called for 30 years, and they did it. It's actually well done. So I do recommend seeing the Netflix adaptation of it on that. But it's definitely worth a read. I know it ties well into our next book, it's their counter place. They're meant to be read together, so it works well. And I'm glad we dove into this.
Splash.
So my final thought is that I really appreciate King's attempt to write women. it's not, oh, I don't write women well. It's I write people well. And he wrote a really good main character with a lot of depth and dark and twisty and crevices while embedding some very natural and apparent sexism just as almost like a social commentary of like this is how life is, dudes. You gotta like notice. Obviously it didn't really help, but that's what I see by writing a really good person story. I like when Stephen King, like, I'm like an in between Stephen King reader. I don't like the middling ones. I either like it when he writes an entire continent worth of people or focuses on one single person. I don't like the middle ground that it gets a little murky. Give me one person or give me everybody. And this is a good one person shot.
So, all right. That wraps us up. Make sure you're following us on social media at Floats Down Here on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you send us a digital handcuff key to floatsdownhere@gmail.com. I was working on that one for a little bit here. All right. Make sure you're checking out all of our stuff at thepodcastthat.com. Subscribe, rate us on iTunes and on YouTube at Drawbridge Media.
Hey, did you know that this show and all of our shows at thepodcastthat.com are produced with the love and support of our imaginary Legion patrons? If you didn't, you should go and learn more about our reward tiers at patreon.com/stay-imaginary.
Please join us in September when we read Dolores Claiborne. A woman tells the police her story. A woman tells the police her life story as she's accused of murder. But they've got her for the wrong one.
And then she looks down a well.
You'll float too.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.
The podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.